Okay, here we go, and welcome back, everybody. I'm so excited about today's guest because we have a serial entrepreneur here in San Diego. The founder and CEO of Power Digital, Grayson Lafrenz, is here. Grayson, what's up?
Bob, how's it going? Great to be here with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we appreciate you giving us a little bit of your time this morning. I know how busy you are right now. Want to get to Power Digital and all the great things that you got going right now. But first, let's talk a little bit about, I had Neil Bloom on the show recently, and we started talking about his thing, which was tacos. What's the best taco in town? And of course, me growing up in Solana Beach, Del Mar, I had to go with Roberto's as being the best. And but it got me thinking about how that really took me back to my childhood growing up in San Diego. I know you're a native, went to La Jolla High School as well. And what do you remember about growing up here in San Diego?
Yeah, I think San Diego is just an amazing place to grow up. And for me, it's always been home, and never had any intentions to leave. But just remember beach days during the summer, swimming at the Cove, all that. But it's crazy how much it's changed. Even when I went off to college at University of Arizona, I'd come back after a year and they've got, new stop signs in different areas and things are very different. So it's kind of cool to see when you go away for a little bit like that. It's kind of like a puppy. You get when you're there, you don't notice it as much, but when you get a little time off and come back, it grows quite a bit and looks very different.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually went away for like 15, 20 years or so back east. And when I came back, it completely changed. It's amazing, the growth.
It is. Yeah, I think a lot of really exciting things that are happening in San Diego from a business perspective, and a lot of the big tech companies that are coming down. And I think with the universities that we have here for sure, and especially on the technology side with UCSD, I think a lot of these bigger companies like Google and Amazon and Facebook and these groups are figuring out that San Diego is a pretty good place to attract talent to. And then there's also a lot of good talent that they can just keep here in San Diego from UCSD that traditionally would leave San Diego and go other places just because we didn't necessarily we had the biotech employers, but we didn't have as many of those, high paying, more technical types of employers.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I know before Power Digital, you've started 6 or 7 companies. How did you get started initially as an entrepreneur?
That's a great question. In college, actually, my roommate, who is a longtime business partner of mine and I've started several companies with, he kind of exposed it to me. He had a family of entrepreneurs and he studied entrepreneurship at the University of Arizona in college. And I think probably more than anything, I got to see some pretty cool lifestyle aspects that as an immature college kid that I was like, man, I want that freedom. I want to be able to do these different things and own real estate in these different places and travel like that. So that was probably like what originally made me be like, all right, I want to be an entrepreneur. And then I think that I'm probably a little lucky in that I've never been a great structured learner. I was never a great student, or that was, school was harder for me, probably mainly because, learning disabilities, ADD, things like that. And so I've always just been a learner by doing. And I think that type of learning style works well with entrepreneurship because I think you're figuring out, you have a plan, obviously, and you're executing against, but in the early stages of starting a business or tackling a problem, you're kind of figuring it out as you go to an extent. And so that's kind of how I got introduced and how it came together for me.
So as you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, is there any advice that you got right away that helped you kick it off? I know a lot of times, and I'm guilty of this myself, it's just getting started in something. We get kind of paralyzed with, maybe you've got a great idea, but what do you do next?
Yeah, exactly. You got to start somewhere. I made a lot of mistakes for sure. I think the best advice that I got that really stood out is I graduated college in 2007 and I had a business plan that I had written and I was ready to go. And I went and was trying to raise money and I was just getting kind of networked around and was getting rejected a bunch of times. And that didn't really stop me. That didn't bother me as much. I think that is one thing. If you want to be an entrepreneur or just a very, successful executive, you got to be very used to rejection and be able to, kind of next shot, kind of like the best basketball players. But I remember really clearly after getting rejected a bunch of times, I was talking to a really successful entrepreneur and he told me, dude, it's 2007. Nobody's investing in your idea, even if it's a good idea. You're not going to raise money. You have no background. You have no experience. You have no skill set. Go get yourself a skill set if you want to be an entrepreneur. And I asked him, well, if I want to be an entrepreneur, what skill set should I get? And he told me that I needed to learn how to be a rainmaker and drive revenue. And at the time, that was really sales. And I think now it could be sales or it could be internet marketing because, with the way that the internet is now and e-commerce, you can certainly drive a lot of very scalable revenue growth and customer acquisition through the internet. But to me, I think the most successful entrepreneurs I know usually are kind of rainmakers and can get deals done and drive revenue. I think that's just a really hard thing to outsource, or it's a really hard thing to hire for when you're starting out because the people that have that skill are very expensive and are in very high demand. And they have a lot of different options. And so that was kind of the best advice is get a skill and mainly learn how to drive revenue because you can always lean back on that. And ultimately, if you're scaling revenue and growing that piece quickly, it makes it a lot easier to figure out other parts, of the business and product and things of that nature.
That's super interesting for me because we deal with that a little bit as well, just being on the real estate commercial brokerage front, where you can be a great real estate guy, right? Great mind to do the deal, but if you don't have any customers or you don't have any clients, you don't really have a business. And,
yeah,
you gotta have that rainmaker mentality.
Yeah, and especially like early on, I mean, even if it's in real estate or whatever you're in, you typically are if young in your career, your skill set is your track record's lower. So to get people to invest in you and bet on you is going to be a lot harder because you haven't shown that you can do it and that you've done it many times. And so you got to be, that's also sales in itself is raising money if that's what you're doing or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, to me, if you have that skill set, you're going to be successful, whether you end up making it as an entrepreneur or just as an executive. But it's just every company wants that skill set and it's in very high demand. And so I think it's a great way to go. I think the challenge is that the traditional education system doesn't teach that very well. So for what we do with internet marketing, they're very, very surface level. And same thing in sales. It's always surprised me that the universities don't have more robust, like real sales training, because I think a lot of people come out of college and they're like, I'm social. I like to talk to people. I can meet people. Yeah. I can sell. And it's like, when you look at those entry-level sales organizations, so many of, the attrition rate is really, really high. And most people figure out, what, maybe sales isn't cut out for me. And I think a lot of it's just being able to deal with that rejection and be very, very consistent in those activities and grind it out until your skill set gets stronger and you have more of a network, and then it kind of flips.
Right. Let's talk about Power Digital a little bit. I think you're up to over 350 team members right now. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the company, but why don't you give us maybe a minute or two just on Power Digital and what you're doing, and maybe what is a little bit different on the digital marketing side for you?
Yeah. So what we do is performance marketing and very much focused around e-commerce brands. So we work with a bunch of brands that you and listeners would know for sure. And we work as an extension of their team to help them acquire more customers through internet marketing. And so what that means is that we pretty much do all the online prospecting to where we can reach a new potential customer, drive them to the website or Amazon or wherever we're trying to drive this conversion or sale. And then once we acquire that customer, we work with these brands to drive lifetime value and to get a second, third, fourth purchase through a variety of different channels. So that's kind of our focus. What makes us really unique is a couple things. One, first and foremost, the thing that I love most about our company is we just have an incredible team. And I feel very, very honored and lucky to be a part of it. Just very talented, driven, forward looking people. that I respect a lot as people and humans, but are also very, very serious about their craft. And so our team members have very deep channel expertise, and they're really focused in one discipline, which I think in the day and age that we're in, with how competitive e-commerce is, to really be elite, you need to be very focused on that one discipline. You can't be the master of all kind of trades. But the other thing that makes us really unique is that most of our competition, most players in our space, they're just pure service businesses. But we have invested over the last 8-9 years, millions of dollars and lots of resources in building out our Nova platform, which is basically a first-party data platform that can hook up to any e-commerce brand's first-party data. And then it will ingest that, and basically we'll use some machine learning on the quantitative side to go and analyze every step of the customer journey and where we can acquire customers profitably. And so it scores all those different channels. It tells you which ones are viable. It shows you where the growth can be realized. It forecasts that growth and results and shows the associated investment. It will actually build the tactical roadmap to execute against. And so it just gives us a huge advantage where it takes the guesswork out of where are we going to go, drive more top line growth, or where are we going to go get more profitable around customer acquisition. Usually clients have one of those two issues. They're either they're not hitting the top line revenue growth goals that they want to hit, and they've kind of hit a glass ceiling, or they are, but it's not going to scale because it's not profitable. The margin's too tight, or the payback period's too tight. And so we're able to basically set up the Nova engine to go analyze and answer the question on how to do that for either of those different issues. And it just gives us a huge edge, allows us to really sniper those opportunities, allows us to drive a tremendous amount of value in advance for those brands, because we won't engage with them until we're very aligned on what is possible and how to get there. So they're actually getting that roadmap, they're getting that analysis before we ever work together. It's kind of a mutual diligence process, whereas our competitors, usually that's what they're doing in the first couple of months that they're partnered with a brand. And for me, it's like, if I'm a brand, which I've been in that shoes, it's a little bit hard for me to commit to a partner for them to do research on how they can help me and tell me, because I may not agree or like that research, or it may not hit my business goals at all. And so those are probably the two biggest things that make us very unique in our industry and what we do.
So the Nova engine, does that allow you, I can see a brand or a company coming in to talk with you, and you go through that process with them, and it really kind of shows you, hey, what we're doing can work for you. Or on the other hand, maybe we're not the best choice for you, or maybe you're not the best choice for us because of what we're seeing on the data.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing about us. It's not, here's why Power Digital. It's all about them, their data. I mean, it's very granular. So it will show them if they're running Facebook ads, for example, and they're able to spend $100,000 a month and they're trying to get to $1 million a month, it will show them if that's possible. And it will show them the impact that'll have on efficiency in terms of the return that they're getting on that investment. Because typically as you scale up, there is diminishing returns, like, most things. Yeah. So it will do that. But for sure, I mean, it allows us to set the right expectations with them. And it's kind of like handicapping. So kind of like in sports, Vegas is incredible. They got a bunch of MIT statistics geniuses that are creating the lines for the sports games that you're betting on. And it's always wild how accurate they are. Same thing around growing companies. And so we actually have a division that's solely focused on private equity, growth equity, VC, where we're doing diligence for them on potential, billion-dollar investments or acquisitions. Because obviously, if they can grow those companies, whether their target's a 10% year-over-year growth rate, or 5 or 20 or 30, we're able to really answer that question with a data-backed approach and make these investments much more of a sure thing for them as well.
As over the past 2 years, as e-commerce has taken a real big boost, and everybody gets more familiar with ordering packages for everything. It sounds like your main clients are in the e-commerce business as well. Did you see a real big growth as we went through that, past year and a half or so?
Yeah, the past year with COVID has been super interesting. I mean, for sure, the e-commerce category has grown tremendously. It was already rapidly growing, and I think COVID just expedited it. And I think in two ways. One is it forced these brands they just didn't have, most of the clients we work with, they have a big e-com business, or they want to have a big e-com business, and they typically have a retail type of business. So the retail business got hit pretty hard. And so it forced them to lean into their own .com e-commerce business as well as Amazon. So as they did that, they put more dollars, more resources into that, which, gave us more opportunity and more chips to basically work with. But the other thing that happened is a whole new wave of consumers were educated on how to shop online, and they were made comfortable with that. And so my mom's a good example, more of a traditional shopper, whereas like my wife and I, we always, we do almost all of our shopping, whether it's for clothes or whether it's for groceries or whatever, we do it all online. My mom didn't, and she was forced to. And I think that older demographic more so was forced to than anyone, because they were obviously even more at risk with COVID and all that. So it really opened up a bigger generation of consumers that learned how easy that can be, how comfortable that can be, and got comfortable with that. So without a doubt, but COVID was challenging at the same time. I mean, I think even these brands that were exploding on e-commerce, it's a lot of scared money and unknown, just like anything. And so, definitely a lot more high touch, and understandably, and a lot of challenges that came from that as well. So I'd say it was good, definitely, for our industry and for e-com and all that. And we had a really strong year, which I feel very, very blessed, because I know that, that's not the case for many, but I think, we were in a space that had tailwind before, and it just expedited. But at the same time, definitely a lot of challenges, and probably one of the most challenging years for me that I've had, as one of our leaders. And I think, a lot of our team would say that as well.
Yeah, let's dig a little deeper on that. With the shutdown that happened, I guess, about 1.5 years ago now, you talked about your team members a little bit and just the value of the team and the culture, which I know was a big part of your company. How did you guys handle that? And as things start to move forward a little bit and maybe go back to the office a little bit, what's your strategy there too?
Yeah, so we were really early to go remote. And I think we did it well, and we were lucky. And partly it's because we work with brands that are all over the world. So we were very used to Zoom and, that type of thing prior. We'd been doing that for years. But I think our team just banded together. I think whenever you go through great adversity, if it's a sports team or a friend group or family or a company, it will either make you and bring you way tighter through that shared experience, or it will show major cracks and fracture you. And for us, it definitely made us tighter. We had to adapt a lot, for sure. So, I mean, one of our the things that I think is most special about our company is just when you get the people together, it's a great group. It feels like a really tight-knit group. People really enjoy hanging out with each other outside of work. And so that was almost, nulled to an extent when we were in lockdown, but we kind of created geopods. We moved more resources onto the employee development and onto the culture team, and just did a lot of different things. And I think our team really picked each other up. But what was interesting is that we also did 3 acquisitions fully remote. So we acquired 3 companies. And between the 3, that was integrating, about 100 people. And so certainly that's a whole nother challenge. But for us in the future, it's kind of, we're letting people do whatever they want. So if people want to be full-time in the office, great. We'd love to have you. We'll have a great spot set up for you. You probably get more of a premium desk with all your stuff, all that good stuff. If you want to be a hybrid, which I think a lot of team members want, then we'll have desks set up. You come in, you use them when you like, and then you work from home when you like. And then if you want to be fully remote, that's fine too. But it probably doesn't make a huge difference, because we've got team members all over the country. So, we have an office in New York, we have an office in DC, we have an office in Tel Aviv, Israel. We had an office in LA, which we've shut down for now. But we have team members that are also remote all throughout the country. And so, it's very common, regardless, even if you have a lot of people in the office, that you're going to have somebody that's on a Zoom or that's dialing in and that type of thing.
And so as that kind of materializes, and that's great. So you give everybody kind of the ability, hey, you can come in if you want to come in. Are you starting to see people go into the office more and more now? Has that kind of trend started a little bit? We're seeing it just on the in a general way, being in the real estate market and examining the office space. There's activities way up, it appears, and it's just it feels like we're getting to a point where people are more comfortable going back to the office.
Yeah, I think people are comfortable for sure. And we've surveyed our team. I think we have about 400 people now, and we've surveyed, probably every couple months for the last year. And definitely when you looked at the first survey, the full-time in the office, percentage was low. Hybrid was probably then the biggest, but maybe not by a wide stretch. And then there's a lot remote. And so that's shifted. More people want to come in without a doubt. But, in our business, we're like, hey, if you can, do your thing and be successful, then work wherever you're happiest. I think one of the pros and probably a challenge is that recruiting is very different now. So, we're recruiting nationwide, which is a pro because, we've always had a hard time finding great, super talented team members that also really align with our core values that we're really proud to have on our team fast enough. There's more customer demand than there is talent. So now we're able to recruit, nationwide, which helps. But the other thing that's happened is there's a whole bunch of new competitors that we're competing against in our core markets because San Diego, for example, actually has a really, really strong marketing community. I think there's some great companies here in our space. There's some great brands. And then I think San Diego State in particular, the business school has really, really become very strong. And the marketing programs for a university, I think, are ahead of the curve. And their Lavin Center there for entrepreneurship is also very strong. And so a lot of those students want to learn internet marketing because of the rainmaker thing that we were talking about. Yeah. So that was like a major feeder system for us. And now there's just more new competition that is going after that same talent. So it's really interesting. I think that the market right now is very employee friendly. And that there's a shortage of great talent. And so companies are having to really compete and try to find those people and create amazing opportunities for them.
In what I do, we see a lot when we're working with tech companies or even a medical device, a lot of different companies. It's all about the culture of the office space and keeping and retaining talent, let's say. So what's interesting about what you're saying is the importance of the office space, right? Because now you can go hire someone from Nashville and do most of it virtual. Do you think that takes a little bit of the importance off of the way that your office space is laid out or the location?
Yeah, I think there's things that are not optimal about our current office space that we're working through and figuring out. We had more open concept office and we had pretty high density, which I think had advantages. The energy in our office, our headquarters in Old Town before COVID, if you walk through here, you'd be like, holy smokes. It's contagious and it's just popping. So it's not the case anymore for sure. And I think, with more individuals, doing Zoom calls and more people remote. So even internal meetings being more over the computer, you need more breakout rooms and places that people can go and be able to do that. So I think it's changed a lot. For me personally, I liked it with people. I like to be in the office. I think mainly for two reasons. One is it for my own kind of work-life balance and it kind of creates a separation between church and state. I like driving to the office and it kind of gets me in the zone. And when I'm done and I'm driving home, I'm done. And I like doing that. And it makes it, get home, see my wife, and I'm able to be present and not distracted. Whereas when I was working from home, I've got a great home office setup, but it was a lot harder. And then I also just get energized by the people. And when I get a meeting these days where we're all in the office and we don't have anybody on the phone, it's like, this is amazing. It's more fun. It's more productive. So that's my view. But I think, people are different and different people prefer different things. And so the more that we can allow people to do what they enjoy and what works best for them, that's really our job as leaders or as, entrepreneurs or whatever, is to set people up to be as successful as possible. And what I found is that when people are happiest and in the best mindset, then they're going to do the best work and they're going to be the best kind of version of themselves for your business and as a teammate. So that's what we need to do. And I think we'll just continue to observe. I'm starting to see a lot of articles that are coming out that are talking about how the work from home actually kind of leads people to be more stressed, more anxious, maybe have more challenges with balance because of those lines. And so I think, everybody will learn a lot more over the next year, but we're going to just be flexible and see where it goes and do what we can to support our people.
Yeah, let's talk about the overall tech ecosystem in San Diego a little bit. I've had several people on the show here recently in the tech industry, and it really feels to me like there's a really great movement that's been happening for several years. But the health of the high tech industry in San Diego seems to be in really good shape.
Yeah, I think it is for sure, and I think the key is to have more of these like homegrown success stories that start small and grow here. I think it's also great to have like Amazon and Google and these types of groups expanding their footprint in San Diego for sure, because I think it helps draw people down. But I think the key is the startups and the SMBs and them, really becoming big employers and attracting people. And I think the good news is that as we attract people to San Diego, it's pretty easy to keep them here because it's, compared to the Bay Area, it's cheap. And so that is less of a thing because that's usually what you hear. And that's where a lot of that talent's coming from, is within California and up north. And then just the quality of life and the culture that you have in San Diego, I think, is second to none, where the people are a little bit more laid back, but it's not pretentious or kind of cookie cutter like I feel some of the cities that are a little bit north of us are. And so I think those are all really good things. I think the traditional challenge with the tech industry in San Diego has been access to capital. Or that's at least what I hear. To me, it's kind of like, well, you have a great business, you're aggressive. I have a private equity firm for our company, for example, that we sold to back in January 2019. They're in Chicago. They're not local. And I think that's the case a lot of times. I think a lot of times the investor or the financier is not in the same city. But I think the good news with COVID is that's even more acceptable. And people are totally used to that now. And so I think will help bring more money to good ideas that are in San Diego, which I think has always been probably the biggest thing that I've heard tech founders that are really dependent on fundraising talk about, is that it's harder to raise capital here. So I think that's all really good, and definitely expect to see San Diego blossom. And my hope is that part of the sector can grow like biotech's been able to grow here. I think that would be amazing for our city and just create ton of jobs and a ton of amazing opportunities for our community and for San Diego in general.
As you mentioned, what we talk about a lot on the real estate side is the people coming from up north, from the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, or New York City in the tech industry. But we're not as immersed in it as you are, talking to all of these real high tech CEOs. Is that a real viable option? Are we going to see more of that, you think?
For sure. I mean, I think that the concern more is for California in general. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that have left California and have gone to Austin or have gone to Nashville or Florida or whatever that is. So that's kind of a concern, but that's not a San Diego thing. That's a California thing. For me, I would never consider that because my family's all here. This is home. But if I didn't have those roots here, I get it. California-based companies need to be that much more successful and competitive to get the types of returns that some of these companies that are based in Nevada, Florida, these types of areas get. So I think that's a challenge. But I still think that when you talk about talent, that's always the key in these high-tech industries, is they're going to go where they can get the great talent. And I still think that employees, like entrepreneurs and execs and investors, may prefer to not be in San Diego or California, but employees still are going to prefer to be in San Diego. And so I think that's a great thing, and I think we're positioned really, really well. But I think the Bay kind of loses its appeal. It's never been my thing, but it's just so outrageously expensive. And I think even the culture there, people are getting a little sick of. It's very jumping around to jobs, new startup. I mean, you've seen the shows that tease it a little bit, but I think it's just been it's been turned into like the Hollywood of business, and I think it's losing a little bit of its luster. But we'll see.
Just on the lifestyle, I can't see anything comparing with San Diego, really. The Let's talk about podcasting a little bit and this platform. I've been listening to your podcast, and I'm only number 12 or 13 here on the shows that I've been doing, but I've been amazed by the power of the platform and really just the way it can help create contacts. And I wanted to get your feeling on just the platform as a whole. Podcast, are we going to see more of that, and what are we going to see in the future with it?
Yeah, I think what's amazing about podcasting is creating good content, I think, is hard, and it's competitive, and content is free. So you need to really create great content. I mean, anybody can do it and throw a blog up or a video or whatever that is. So I think the nice thing with podcasting is that you can create some really deep, rich content with minimal prep and effort. And I think that's a win. I mean, for in this case, for both of us here, is that we get to create some cool content, have a cool, fun conversation, and learn and get some exposure. But there's not a lot of prep work or a lot of, if it's a article that you're publishing or something, a lot of editing and steps that you got to go through. So I think that's a big win. I think it'll be interesting how people want to digest content. I think definitely podcasts, the value is even what we're doing here today is there's a video and there's also audio. So it gives people those choices. And then you can also transcribe it into a written format. So it kind of allows you to have agility in all those different formats and however people want to view it. So I think it's going to be a huge part of the future. I think it's a great thing. And I think for businesses, especially if you're B2B, it's also a really great way to connect with people that in a softer way and start to build a relationship that you maybe want to work with or partner with, because you call them for a sales call and to do a discovery and to get coffee, they're probably like, I'm busy, I don't want to do it. But if you have something to offer, in this case, maybe some exposure and some good content that you're going to help them create, they're probably a lot more likely to take your call. And as you can see, here, and everyone knows, you get to know each other, you build rapport, and most people enjoy talking and hearing themselves talk. So you get the person talking and they're probably thinking that it's going pretty well and having a good time.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, last question, and I'll let you get back to work. Being so busy every day and growing these companies, and now, this big company with so many team members, what are some of the things that you do every day? Maybe it's a daily habit, or maybe it's a weekly habit that you do that really kind of helps you focus and keep moving forward.
Yeah, I think it shifts, and it's kind of seasonal for me. I mean, actually the last probably month and a half have been one of the hardest for me, just mindset wise, because I've had this back injury. So I've been on the disabled list.
Oh.
All I've been able to do is some kind of physical therapy for the back. And so for me, that I've noticed it, and I've had to be very aware because I need that outlet. So typically it would be, going surfing before I start work. I mean, for me, that's, if I'm able to do that, the way I show up to the day, my patience level, all that stuff, it's a game changer. Or just getting out in nature for me, whenever I feel kind of constricted, that's what I do. But probably my more daily routine is, this is probably the worst advice that you can give people, and the last made up advice that people give, but it's the truth, is when I get home, what I have a hard time with is turning my brain off and kind of shutting down and relaxing and being able to then fall asleep at a reasonable time and not being laying in bed and mind's racing with ideas and all that. So for me, it's like trying to get in bed at a reasonable time and then just unplugging and watching some mindless TV and just kind of letting my brain slowly shut off so that I can get a good night's sleep. And I'm a person that I need the sleep. And then the other thing that I do is when I can get stressed or feel overwhelmed is usually, you should see my calendar, just like probably most people, it's during the week, it's just back to back to back to back. That doesn't bother me. But when my weekends are packed back to back to back, I really need those weekends where I don't really have plans and I can kind of do what I want and kind of tinker around and cruise around. And it's like how I recharge. And I'm more of a naturally introverted person. And so it takes a lot of energy for me to be constantly on the go. So for me, it's just kind of making sure I block out those weekends just for downtime and to hang at home or do whatever I kind of want when you wake up. And then also just shutting the mind down and being able to get that good sleep and being really aware of that. Because if I try to read before bed and reading a business book, great idea, but I'll be up all night thinking about it. And that won't serve me very well in the next day or the day after that.
Okay, sorry, I got one more question but I have to ask you because I caught something there. What you said that you're naturally introverted, and I'm the same way. I feel, but do you feel like doing things like this and just being the leader of so many people now? Do you have to overcome that daily, or explain that a little bit?
No, I mean, the way that I know that, it's funny because I think most people wouldn't think that. But I've, worked with these coaches and done some of these tests. And so it shows it really clearly. And I think everything's pretty accurate that I've seen in these analysis. But no, I don't. I mean, for me, work is energizing. I love the competition. I love the camaraderie with the team. I like the aspect that there's a scoreboard in business. And so that kind of fuels me. But I need, going out on school nights during the week, that takes a lot of energy from me. So it's more probably the social kind of small talk, fun stuff that a lot of people would probably feel charges them up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love that. And, I value that stuff a lot, but I just need to create time. And for me, it's, I like to have my alone time and downtime. And then, my wife, Jen, also is like a battery for me. I tell her that all the time. So when I'm just hanging with her, we're just kind of hanging out. She helps recharge me. And it's just, you don't have your guard up at all. You don't have to be on. You can just kind of be unplugged and relaxing. So I don't have to be like super aware of it. It's more just not letting the calendar get to where every weekend I have travel or I've got just a packed agenda. And I'm usually doing stuff those weekends where I don't have anything, but it's like waking up and be like, okay, I'm going to go to the driving range and hit some balls, or I'm going to go surf, or I'm going to go mess around in the garden or whatever it is. And being able to not have plans and not have that pressure and just do what I want to do.
Well, Grayson, such great stuff today. I really appreciate you being here with me, and continued success at Power Digital and all the great things that you've got going. And I'll look forward to catching up again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
All right. Talk later. Thanks, man.
Thanks.